Hello everyone, Mikey der Panzernator here, and today we have the focus tree we have been expecting ever since hashtag Blame Daniel showed its face again, and we saw a Mexican Civil War during one of the developer streams showing off Man the Guns, and of course what that showed off, I might have mentioned already, still not sure, is Mexico. Mexico is getting its focus tree, the fourth nation to get a redone, or its first actually focus tree in Man the Guns. Of course, the two major powers getting a rework are the UK and the US, and the other minor power that's getting a brand new focus tree is the Netherlands, and of course Mexico rounds out the final four. So we start reading the dev diary, quoting Podcat. Welcome to Mexico, a country ravaged by internal tension, corrupt politicians, rural rebellions, and threatened by the looming shadow of her northern neighbor. Oh, and it's spelled the British with the U in the neighbor. I'm sorry. Carrying on. In Man the Guns, you will get the chance to work through all of these obstacles, reform the nation, and turn them into a power strong enough to expand or involve themselves in World War II. So, end quote there. That is the intro. So we have the picture of the main focus tree. Of course, it highlights different parts, but big time focus tree. I think I saw on Reddit earlier today, this is one of the largest focus trees that will be in the game at the time of the release. It seems with each expansion, the new focus trees are larger and larger, and I'm okay with that. I like more options. I like the alt history. I mean, it really is what gives you more gameplay hours in Hearts of Iron. And so yeah, let's continue. So the good, the bad, and the ugly. Quoting again from the dev diary, Mexico's politics at this time were dominated by revolutionary generals who toppled the dictator Diaz. Oh, by the way, quick pause. Of course, on behalf of the developers, none of the numbers are final. Things can change, blah, 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 yada, yada. You know the drill. And on my behalf, I took French in high school. I don't know that much Spanish, so if I butcher all these names, I apologize, but let us continue. Okay, so Mexico, blah, 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 toppled the dictator Diaz, then squabbled amongst themselves, issuing their pronunciamiento, basically a justification for their attempt to seize power, and betraying one another ruthlessly. Three of the main figures from these caudillos, a word combining the role of warlord, patron, businessman, and politician, were President Lázaro Cárdenas, President Plutarco Calles, and military strongman Saturnino Cedillo. Oh boy, this is going to be this is a let's play y'all want me to do, because I'm going to butcher all these names. Returning to this, the ruling clique gradually turned from coups and civil wars to less violent means of seeking power, but at the start of the game's transition is still taking place. So here we have a spread shot of Lazaro. He's not aligned. Of course, you can see the buttons for the new exiled government mechanic, and looking at some of the advisors, you know, you have your normal ones like everyone has, Captain of Ministry, War Industrialist, Prince of Terror. Some of these are cheaper, smooth talking charmer, but we have at least 3, maybe 4 that I have not seen before. Ambitious Union Boss, Vicente Lombardo, a syncretic revanchist in Jose Vasconcelo, and then we have the Shadow of Calles in Aaron Sanez Garza. So some different types of advisors. We might be getting some more unique advisors in the Mexican focus tree, Mexican government, and whatever. So back to the dev diary, of course. Lázaro Cárdenas, president from 1934 to 1940, was a socialist who led the nationalization of Mexican oil concessions, built up a state financing of manufacturing industries, encouraged the collectivization of peasant farms and their protection from landlords via ejido militias. All these Spanish words are going to throw me off. I'm sorry to keep sidetracking, but continuing. And ejidos militias, and is celebrated today for his role in modernizing the nation. Historically, he helped the transition of Mexico from military dictatorship to a stable and functioning democracy, thanks to his ability to both compromise with modern opposition and undermine domestic threats to the state from extremists. So I'm guessing, is Lazaro going to be the non-aligned leader? Maybe some of a, communist. They did say he was a socialist. I think he's just going to be either a non-aligned or democratic because they have someone special in mind for one of their communist paths. But we'll get to that later. And now we have Plutarco Calles, president from 1924 to 1928, and a quote-unquote shadow president for much of the reigns of his successors, was a divisive figure to say the least. He attempted to cement the state's power over the Catholic Church in Mexico using brutal suppression of priests and their faithful, going as far as torturing and even crucifying dissidents. The Cristiada, a rebellion by rural farmers to oppose this forced secularization, won little success in the field against Calles' troops, hardened as they were by civil war and supported by modern artillery and bomber planes, but it did cause some concern inside the ruling clique over methods, ultimately leading to a compromise between the church and the state. Calles still clings to the power he has left, and must either throw him out of the country or accept his role in the New Mexico. No, not New Mexico, the state. The New Mexico. Okay, it's going to get confusing. I read the dev diary. I saw something in the rejected titles. No, I saw something on the wiki where it linked to this New Mexico focus tree. I'm like, a state gets a focus tree? No. The New Mexican. That's still confusing. The country of Mexico is acquiring a new focus tree. But anyway, back to Calles or whatever. So we can see he makes your advisors cheaper, and he's basically anti-communist. Not sure what his ideology is going to be. Probably some sort of fascist. And so San Luis Potosi or whatever. Okay, then this gets us to Saturnino Cedillo, governor of San Luis Potosi, was one of the last of the caudillos to threaten the Mexican state. A survivor, he absorbed remnants of the Cristero rebels into his private army and managed to maintain relative independence in his province, with which the central government sought to crush. Ultimately, he rebelled against Cardenas' incursion into his power base. Historically, his rebellion was short-lived, as the Cardenas government successfully undercut his support and disarmed his paramilitary forces, killing him in the field in a few months. Cardenas suspected America and Britain of inciting Cedillo's rebellion by promising support in order to punish Mexico for seizing their oil concessions, but no support has ever arrived. So we got some conspiracy theories. We see some guy, and a bunch of these names are going to run together because a lot of them start with C's. But yeah, just some good history from the devs. Screenshot of San Luis Potosi. I don't know if that's like a rebel unit or just one that pops up. I don't know, but that we do see a fighter plane, a unique model, I think, Mexican type. But so that's some of the little history and all the different, the government instability at the beginning. And then the dev diary continues on to economic development. You can see mutually exclusive paths. I'm guessing the left one goes towards communism. You can tell by the icon if you do the agriculture credit bank, or if you go to liberalizing the banking sector. I guess that might lead to fascist or democrat. I don't know. I probably should have looked at the focus tree as a whole, but you get your research bonuses on both of them and all of that. So again, quoting the dev diary, Mexico is a major producer of oil at the game start and only stands to increase its role as an exporter as the conflagration grips the world and upsets the flow of trade around the globe. Okay. I thought just wording tripped me up there. Historically, Mexico's nationalization of the concessions granted by Cardenas' predecessors, mostly to Royal Dutch Shell and Standard Oil of California, caused a backlash from Britain and America, which served to isolate Mexico and almost pushed them into the arms of the Germans. In-game, you must develop your oil if you wish to become a major international player, and on the way, you will build up your infrastructure using either Cardenas' path of socialism and import substitution, or successor of Villa's preferences, liberalization and privatization. As seen is in the Dutch dev diary, Hoi 4 is getting a new mechanic relating to the concessions of resources from one country to another, which transfers the contents of a state free of charges. This will make its appearance in Mexico in the form of oil concessions to Royal Dutch Shell and Standard Oil of California. Nationalizing these assets was a goal of the Mexican revolutionaries from the outset and became a source of friction between Mexico and the former owners, Britain and America respectively. Once President Cardenas actually took steps towards nationalization. So this is something I missed when reading the Dutch focus tree. Before I started making these videos, which was only 4 weeks ago. I think this is my third one. I would read these in the morning because they put them out in terms of European time. So whenever I get up and I'm getting ready for the day, I read the dev diaries. But yeah, so basically, you can kind of see on the resource map mode, you got flags above the oil, and you're producing the oil, but it's guaranteed to go to the owner or whoever. What's the term? Concession of resources. Yeah, so basically you'll have to deal with that if you want to keep your oil or trade it fair and square. And so in the focus tree, or no, these are different focuses that are not the one they showed us before. These are later. You have Royal Dutch Shell, which basically if you take that focus tree, you kind of concede to the British, and it gives you some research speed, some synthetic research speed, some trade law cost, political power gain, and it gives you back the rights to your resources and adds production. Or you could take nationalize the oil fields, which means you get the rights to all the oil resources in your country, but the UK and the US might go to war with you, which would be bad because they will murder you very quickly. Or maybe not. Maybe that's part of the thing. So military expansion is next. You can see pretty much you have no real options until the very end, where you choose between Blue Water Navy and Raiding Navy, and then on the ground heavy artillery or aerial artillery, I guess, in the sky. And then quote, Mexico begins in 1936 as a war-weary third-rate power, racked by internal tensions and the legacy of decades of civil war. This was not always the case, however. The armaments industry established by President Diaz prior to the instability was making many advances in weapons technology, aircraft production, and even experiments in tank development. The famous Mondragon rifle was one of the earliest pioneers in semi-automatic small arms. A more assertive Mexico would also likely reject the reliance on Italian gunboats and American hand-me-down destroyers if she sought to contest the oceans. So yeah, you can see they have the Mondragon M94, the Mondragon M08, and then the Mendoza C-34 and RM2. Mendoza. Mendoza was the name of the business school at Notre Dame, or is the name of the business school at Notre Dame. So I chuckle every time I see the name Mendoza. And then we also see Mexico has unique fighter designs with their own portraits, which is awesome. I mean, I never knew this. I'm learning. I'm a big history buff. I'm learning Mexico actually was somewhat relevant. I know a lot of it's old history, but like, the airplane design and the weapons design and all that. Mexico is better for, it's good for more things than spring break. So after building up factories and shipyards, you have a choice to make on both the army and naval branches of the tree. As I said earlier, Mexico, uninterested in fighting decisive battles, might instead decide to focus on convoy raiding, whereas choosing to contest the service against your rivals will require a powerful surface fleet. The two finishers on the naval tree reflect these differences. So Blue Water Navy is what you want if you want the, to build up the big navy, fight with the big boys like America and the UK. Mexico has never been a naval power. In colonial times, our Spanish overlords needed all their ships to face the British. During the independence struggle and civil wars following it, all our attention were focused inward. After America overtook us and became a great power, there was no point in trying to contest the seas. But perhaps in these turbulent times, Mexico will need a powerful navy. And currently it says you replace Brown Water Navy with Blue Water Navy. I don't know what Brown Water Navy does, but you get better escort efficiency, and you get research bonuses for naval doctrine and heavy cruisers and battleships. Or you could instead decide to go with Raiding Navy, which the tech flavor for that says, we can't hope to catch up with the major naval powers of the world in contesting the surface against battleships and carriers. We should instead try to interdict enemy troop transports before they arrive to protect Mexico from invasion. So while Blue Water Navy gives you bonuses on escort and battleships and heavy cruisers. This one gives you convoy rating efficiency, also a bonus towards naval doctrine, and gives you research bonuses for submarines and battle cruisers. So I guess, like the Germans with the Graf Spee, battle cruisers using for convoy rating. That's what they're expecting you to do as Mexico, having your budget capital ships. And then for the land ones, when it comes to land battles during the various insurrections against the central government, Mexico utilized her infantry, cavalry, and nascent air force. Whatever. I swear I'm a smart person sometimes. Nascent air force and a powerful combined arms force the rebels were unable to defeat, and you will likewise be able to modernize the different branches of the armed forces until deciding between conventional artillery or aerial support as the finisher on one side of the army tree. So you either go with artillery, which gives you, which says the killing power of field artillery is undeniable. The Great War showed the world how essential artillery is for supporting advances and breaking up enemy offensives. We must develop our conventional artillery, which gives you a national spirit. Heavy artillery, which gives you better soft attack for towed artillery and towed rocket artillery. Or you can go with aerial artillery, which the flavor for that reads, we experimented with the use of bombers against soft targets during the Cicero War and numerous other rebellions by unruly generals. Insurrectionists are unable to contest the skies, and this bomber support will be essential to safeguarding the Mexican state, which gives you the natural spirit aerial artillery, which gives you extra ground attack and from tactical bombers and close air support. So some cool military things, some difficult or important choices as to what you want to do. I'm guessing Mexico is not going to have the industry, or if it won't necessarily have the industry to have both artillery and air support, which you might want to pick one or the other, and hence that one. And then the same thing with the Navy. Just depends on what you want to do. So this is a long dev diary, I know, bear with me. A lot to go over because Mexico is going to be quite a fun nation to play. So diplomatic relations, you have there's the Royal Dutch Shell and nationalize the oil fields focus as we saw earlier, and you have some mutual exclusivity, and you can see whether you support Cedillo or you arrest him. And then you have your German exchange program, working with the Allies, and some communist BS. So quote, Mexico is considered America's backyard, an insulting and imperious attitude for the Yankees, spelled in a Hispanic way, for the Yankees to take but one, the Mexican leadership must consider seriously before making their move. Taking independent action of the international stage, aligning towards one of America's enemies, or threatening America's economic interests would all be cause of concern for President Roosevelt, let alone his more expansionist domestic rivals. Mexico can gamble on her northern neighbor being too isolationist to intervene south, but if the gamble doesn't pay off, there will be hell to pay. And so, highlighting some of the focuses in here, international peacekeepers. The democratic powers of the world plan to create an alliance of equals, a United Nations, to ensure international security by giving the countries of the world a place to reconcile their differences and arbitrate their disputes. We will throw ourselves into such a project to help the Latin American nations maintain their independence, and this focus allows you to send volunteers, gives you a national spirit, which gives you extra daily democracy support, and lets you send send volunteers at half the divisions normally, and it makes people take twice as long to justify a war goal on you. And then there's the German, another focus highlighted is the German resource exchange, which the German war machine is gearing back up and needs Mexican oil to function properly. Rather than prostrate ourselves before the Americans or sell our country to the Russians, we can try to exploit the German need for our oil to improve our military power. So this gives Germany an event. If they accept, Mexico gets licensed production of Panzer II and Panzer IV. I think Mexico gets 100% research bonus for tanks, and the German Reich gets the rights to oil or to the resources in a Mexican state. So interesting industrial choices, which also are tied to your diplomatic choices. Seems like a very fun nation to play in, one that you have to kind of tread lightly, especially with historical focuses off, because you never know what's going to happen. Next section is about religion. They mentioned the secularization and fighting with the Catholics and seizing Catholic land. Full disclosure, I myself am Catholic, so if I have any bias in this and it shows, well, now you know. So, here we go. Quote, the biggest divide in Mexican society at the time was certainly the place of the church within society. Most of the Mexican ruling class was strongly anti-clerical, and a law on the tolerance of sects meant sects, not with an X, with a T, S-E-C-D-S, meant that the priest heavily controlled by the state. That grammar's wrong. You can come on, podcat. Anyway, back to the quote. If you want to change the situation, it will be up to you to progressively support the Catholic Church by giving back their lands and amend the anti-clerical laws. If you go down that path, the destruction of the separation between church and state will be waiting for you at the end of the road. So church power, a bunch of decisions. The church has been repressed by the revolutionary state for many years. Our future policy may be defined either by ideology or by real politic, but we must act decisively. And the decisions here: transfer land to the church, nationalize the church lands, pardon Cestero fighter, assassinate Cestero traitor, attend public mass, prosecute clergymen, reconciliation committee, and incite tension. So, quote, two groups can rise to power hand in hand with the church: the Catholic conservatives and the synarchists. The conservatives try to combine their religious beliefs with the Republican institutions. It would lead to the rise of the Party of National Action of Manuel Gomez Marin. As an alternative, the restoration of the church can be concomitant with a much more radical group, the synarchists. That group will try to institute a clerical fascist state using the influence of the members of the church, eager to seek their revenge on the anti-clericalists who ruled Mexico since the 1911 revolution. At the end of both trees, you can contact the veterans of the Cestero War and incorporate them to your armed forces. Such course of action will obviously anger the former ruling class. They'll surely try to contest power in order to reestablish the anti-clerical legal system. Interesting stuff. It just seems like there's going to be a lot of depth and neat stuff with Mexico. I mean, kind of going hand in hand with the Congress in the United States. So, although, you know, I mean, Mexico is a lawless land. I mean, you can say a lot about Congress, especially nowadays in 2018, but we'll focus, continue to focus on the 30s and the 40s here. Revolutionary. So the next section is Revolutionary Legacy. At the start of the game, the Mexican army is divided politically as various generals support their own political group depending on their political orientation. They're usually opposed to the church. One of your first choices will therefore concern the fate of the armed forces. You can choose to control and depoliticize them, transforming them into a professional force, or embrace one of those groups and use them to quickly shift the political landscape of the country. If you choose to support the gold shirts, the country will evolve into an anti-clerical authoritarian regime. The exact nature of that regime can, however, vary a bit. Supporting Plutarco Calles by selecting the Jefe Maximo focus will grant directed control over the state, as he was unable to fully control Cardenas. If Calles was previously exiled and the general Saturnino Cedillo was supported, however, he will lead the opposition and take control of the government. If none of those conditions are fulfilled, Nicolas Rodriguez Carrasco, the leader of the Gold Shirts, will lead the country instead. So it seems like some fascist stuff. So here we have some decisions: Second Cestero War, Second Mexican Revolution, Caudillo Rebellion, and then we see the church power. Second Cestero War. If the government is too heavy-handed in its approach to the church, the Cesteros may take up arms once again to overthrow it. Lesson, basically, blah, blah, blah. And it gives you a bunch, you have to have completed one of several focuses and all of that. And here we can see Saturno Cedillo, strongman of San Luis Potosi, gets extra division recovery rate, political power gain, and sets consumer good factories to 5%, which is amazing. Or is that like a 5% extra? I don't know if it sets it at 5 or 5% extra. We shall see. Quote, as an alternative to right-wing authoritarianism, you can favor the communist red shirts and support other political movements instead. This revolutionary movement will give the presidential seat to Trotskyist head of the Communist Party, Hernan Laborde. So Hernan is a commie. He's a little chubby, but then again, all of these guys look a little chubby. He increases factory output, war support, reduces the cost of subversive activities, and also is a consumer good thing. And you know, you can have him lead unless you invited his mentor to the government previously. So this is the most interesting part of all of this. I think this might be a campaign I have to do. Trotsky Arise, and of course reading this event. Exiled from the Soviet Union for opposing the rise of Stalin, blamed for all manner of problems from military setbacks to industrial accidents, and driven from country to country by political pressure, Leon Trotsky, communist revolutionary and author, has arrived in Mexico after a voyage from Norway on an oil tanker. And you can extradite him to the Soviet Union to face trial for his crimes. He's going to die. We aren't Stalin's puppets. Give him asylum. Okay, that seems like just the neutral thing. And then finally, he's an organizational genius. Invite him to join the government, which you can have him as chief of army. He will give you divisional organization and extra communism support. You'll lose stability. And then the Soviets won't like you. And then the Americans won't like you. Soviets because, you know, Trotsky's a rival of Stalin. America won't like you because you're a communist. And then, you know, you do this, you are rewarded with Leon himself quoting the Dev Diary, awaken angry, ready to take his revenge against Stalin. So Leon Trotsky could become, he looks so weird in this picture, but it's funny. Anyways, you know, he has extra factory output, extra war support, and reduces the cost of subversive activities. And he becomes a communist leader of Mexico. And then, quote, it would then be your objective to lead the Fourth International and show how superior it is to the Third, aka the Comintern. If you want a more peaceful solutions, multiple tools are at your disposal depending on your political orientation. If you are communist and don't want to embrace the political legacy of the Fourth International, you can try to form the Revolutionary American League and spread communism in Latin American countries. As a more right-wing oriented government, you can support Hispanism, the concept that the countries of South America should support each other, and try to form a faction including all of South America. If you are fascist, synarchist, or anti-clerical, the effect will change from a diplomatic offensive to a more violent one. This course of action will allow you to access war goal focuses that can enable you to unite South America by force. So, war on South America, anyone? That sounds fun. If trying to dramatically change the political order in Latin America is not your thing, you can simply adopt realpolitik and find allies in order to survive this era of global conflict. So Trotsky, leading a communist Mexico. That's amazing. I can just picture a communist Mexico led by Trotsky, like, you know, in addition to dealing with World War II and the Germans and the British and the Americans and all of that stuff, you know, also trying to pick a fight with Stalin. Like, that's just, that seems hilarious. And, well, I don't exactly know how that would go. That seems like a Hoi 4 campaign where you just are going everywhere trying to do, you know, take over everything. But, you know, you could really play a role. You know, who doesn't need communists fighting each other? So, moving on, next section is territorial expansion. If you don't want to send just a few planes to help the U.S. against the Japanese, several expansion pathways will be available to you once your diplomatic status is settled. Most of these will grant you war goals against neighboring countries, and in some cases, the addition of new corps will become possible. So here we see some decisions of territorial integration. A revolutionary fight in order to overthrow corrupt governments rewards us with control over entire countries. The inhabitants of those regions, however, have only known oppression, and in order to enjoy true liberation, they must be incorporated into the... And then it just kind of stops. But you can integrate, let's see, it has Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama, integrate the Panama Canal, and Belize. So integrate Guatemala. It lasts 60 days, and 50 political power. After 60 days, Guatemala is a core. And then, quote, the most peculiar plan is certainly Operation Just Cause. If you approve that plan, you will be in a broader conflict against the U.S. in order to take control of the Panama Canal area. And if you're basically, you take this decision, you, if you're at war with Panama, you increase world tension, and you start a border war between Panama and the Panama Canal, and America hates you, and America just really hates you. And Of course, that'll make the U.S. mad. Quote, this will, of course, anger the U.S., so be careful. The rest is either pretty straightforward or will be food for thought until the release. Mexico was our final focusry for Man the Gun, so next we return to the seas for more naval gameplay updates. So we got more naval stuff coming in the next week's Dev Diary, but I just kind of want to, spend some more time. This video's gone quite a while, but I do want to spend some more time on what's coming. So Mexico seems to be just a very unique country in terms of its political structure. I like the alt history. I like playing with historical focuses off. So, it's having more countries get involved in the struggle is going to be interesting. Me pronouncing all these names is going to be even more interesting. Reading the Dev Diary, like I've always noticed, whenever you read the focus trees and the Dev Diaries, you're kind of like, what is going on? But once you look at the focus tree and you get your hands on it, and you play the game, it starts to make more sense. So, this update, I will say, Waking the Tiger, I kind of haven't played any of the Japanese yet. The Chinese, I have played the Japanese. They had a lot of different focus trees, and I haven't played them. I'm not necessarily as interested in playing every warlord or this, that, or the other. In Man the Guns, I'm looking forward to playing all 4 nations. Maybe the Dutch the least of all, but that's just because the Dutch one I don't remember as much. But yeah, Mexico, this is going to be interesting. You can just Trotsky. Trotsky is the one I did not see happening. I love how with all of these focuses or these alt history paths, like bringing back the Kaiser, a lot of it, it seems like, yeah, okay, maybe that could have happened. We're not sure. We're not history experts, but we are. We play Hoi 4. Clearly we know everything. But it seems like if Trotsky can't come back to the Soviet Union, and instead of ending up with an ice pick in his head, he might just take over Mexico and then try and wage war with the Soviet Union. I don't know how. I don't know, naval invading across the Pacific into Siberia, something like that. But just the picture of Trotsky leading a bunch of communist Mexicans on a war against the Soviets is just hilarious, and I can't wait to try it out. So Mexico is coming. I know some people wanted other nations, but I think Mexico fits because they are reworking. The United States, of course, my wish list, I want focus trees for Turkey. Spain is one of the bigger ones. More Bulgaria and Greece, Siam, and maybe even the Philippines. I don't know. Looking at the map that's going by behind you, I don't know. More focus trees, I think, is a good thing. I think Mexico is important because and I'm gonna be interested to see how this affects the achievements you can get as Mexico. So Montezuma's Revenge and Sunset Invasion are the 2 that I can think of. So yeah, Mexican focus tree. Apologize if you weren't as big of fans of me just kind of reading it, but you know what? They say it pretty well. I'm not an expert on this, and might as well just listen to my melodic voice read you the words of Podcat. So we'll finish off, of course, with the Rejected Tiles. Mexico, more like Mexico. Very nice. Making your casa my casa. Okay. Next one. Where in the world is Leon Trotsky? Well, he's in Mexico. Okay. Next one. No one expects this Mexican Inquisition. Seriously, no one. Next up, we have Mexico, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love El Jefe. And then hit or miss, I guess they never miss, huh? You got a Trotsky, Stalin, gun ice picks ya. That's in italics. I don't know if I was supposed to sing that some way or anyways. So yeah, that is the Dev Diary for the Mexican focus tree. Like I said, we knew this one was coming from the hashtag Blame Daniel incident. No, the other hashtag Blame Daniel incident. But yeah, so Mexico looks like it's going to be quite interesting. I don't know how it's going to play on historical, but I don't play with historical on. So I look forward to every campaign where Mexico just does something ridiculous. But anyways, oh, and also one of the things they're adding, don't forget to man the guns in the Ironclad update, is the ability to pick which paths countries go, so we can set up some pretty interesting worlds. But anyways, that is all the time that is not all the time. That's everything we have for this week's Dev Diary. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to read it for yourself, of course, if you're interested. That link is down below. And if you just enjoyed listening to me go over it and give some of my thoughts and crack a joke every now and then, be sure to leave a like, consider subscribing to the channel, follow me on Twitter, and check out my Patreon page. Thank you all so much for watching, and until the next one, this is Mikey, their Panzernator, signing out. See ya, nerds!